Welcome to the Six Figure Flipper Podcast, where we broadcast weekly interviews with real estate investors from around the globe to empower you on your wealth building journey ahead. Here's your host, Matty A.
Ooh, I am pumped for today's interview. What's going on, everybody? This is the kickoff, the very first interview of the Six Figure Flipper Podcast. Now, I've been doing these interviews for a long time and decided, why am I hoarding all this information? Why am I not sharing it with as many people as possible? I get questions asked all the time in regards to, real estate flipping, wholesaling houses, cash flow properties, you name it in the real estate industry. I get these questions, and what better way to share all this information, not coming from my mouth, but from other 6, 7, 8-figure real estate investors in all niches in the industry and the space. And today I figured, what better way to kick it off than with my boy, Brandon Turner. This is an interview we filmed a little bit of a while ago for the Six Figure Flipper course and community. But if you guys aren't familiar with Brandon Turner, you got a good episode ahead of you today. He is the co-host of the BiggerPockets Podcast, which is really like the Facebook social media site for real estate investing and real estate investors. They have all kinds of information. He's interviewed all kinds of amazing real estate investors in all different spaces. And so today we talk about his journey, and we talk about how he got started and really how he went from, working a very minimum wage job to saving up some money to buying his first property to now obviously being a real estate millionaire and having his blog, having the podcast, doing all the amazing things that he's doing. But we really dive into the cash flow aspect of real estate investing and some of the do's and don'ts for new investors, and really just the overall journey of becoming a newbie to becoming a novice to now being an expert and to being at the level that he's at. You guys are really going to enjoy this interview. I don't want to waste any more time, but if you guys are new to the podcast, you're checking it out for the first time, as always, love to give some value. So I have a free resource that I provide to all community members that are checking it out. And the number one thing that I usually get asked is, what books are you reading right now? Or what's the best real estate book you've ever read? So I compiled the top 25 real estate investing reads just for you guys to download. Quick little PDF if you're looking for some new reading material. It covers all different spaces. So you're going to get some good information in this PDF. All you got to do is text the word REI reads, READS, REI reads. That's all one word, no spaces. Text that word to 44222. It'll shoot you a quick message back asking for your email. You put your email in and it'll pop the PDF right into your inbox. So that's my free gift to all of you listening to this very first episode. I'm fired up. We got some great guests coming up for you. Let's dive right in. Welcome everybody to the Six Figure Flipper, the next generation of real estate investors. I'm your host, Matty A, and today's guest is someone who has more knowledge than probably all of us put together. He has interviewed hundreds, and I mean hundreds, of successful real estate investors. Actually, their show you might have heard of, you've probably learned from. I've learned from them as well. Please help me welcome Brandon Turner of BiggerPockets. How you doing, brother?
I am doing well. Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, man. We got a lot of people that are tuning in and listening in that are all at different stages of their real estate flipping and investing journey. And for those that, are either at the beginning stage, they're, maybe at that, I don't know if I want to get involved in this stage, or if they're, just trying to scale their business. I always like to, bring on people that can provide a lot of insight and wisdom for them. And before we dive into that, I wanted to give people an idea, if they don't know who you are, where you're from and what your real estate investing journey looks like from, where you started to where you're at today.
Sure. Yeah, sure. So I started when I was 21 years old. So I was a young investor, simply bought a house. And while I was living in the house, I had this crazy idea. I wanted to go backpack Europe. And I thought, that would be fun. Go for a whole year, go cruise around Europe. So I started thinking, well, how do I afford to do that? I have no money. I'm broke. So I thought, well, I can sell my house and make some money and do it. So I sold my house and I made like 20 grand. And rather than Europe, I ended up just getting married and paid for like this dream wedding, right? So
nice.
It was still good. I didn't do backpacking Europe for a year. I went later on a vacation, but whatever. So, but what I discovered is, even though I didn't get to do Europe, I discovered that I just fell in love with this idea of, I just generated like 20 grand out of nothing. I mean, like it was just, I didn't really, I mean, I worked on the house and I fixed it up myself, but like I made it and I didn't have to go to a job. I worked when I wanted, how I wanted on it. It just totally changed my life. And from that point, I just started buying houses. I flipped a few, and that's 2008, 2009, 10, the market just crashing, and ended up flipping some, ended up keeping some as rentals, and I just kept picking up rentals. Eventually got into an apartment complex, a 24 unit. And today I buy small multifamilies mostly I buy them for rental properties. I have 50-ish units, like somewhere at 52 or 54. I need to recount because I sold a couple and bought a couple this month. But somewhere around 52 units right now. And I usually flip, I don't know, half a dozen houses. Maybe that's a lot. Maybe 4 houses a year is kind of my goal.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
that's great. I think a lot of people got their start in real estate flipping, and they use that vertical income to go out and buy horizontal income and ultimately, build out their passive income and their long-term wealth. What was the real reason why you got into flipping, and has that, really shifted over time, or is it still the same?
Yeah, originally I got into it just because it looked fun. I was watching the flipping shows back in 2008, and then I think it was like Flip That House was the one that was popular back there with Armando Montalongo, and like I love that stuff, right? So like
rolling up on the lawn with his Hummer, yelling at
exactly. I love those shows, and so like I got really into it because of that. But like as I would try to flip houses, like in the back of my mind, part of it back then I was thinking, well, if I flip the houses, I can use them as down payments to buy rentals, but then the flips just stopped selling. I mean, this was 2008, 2009, so nothing was selling. I mean, everyone was thinking the world was falling apart. And so I ended up turning most of the flips that I was doing just into rental properties. I mean, I sold a couple back then, and I broke even on one, I lost money on one, and I made a little bit on the other to cover the fact that I lost money on the others. And so like the ultimate plan of using that income to, retire or quit my job and to fund my rental properties never really actually happened because I never really made good money in the beginning flipping. But I started building equity in the property, started getting cash flow coming in, and then I really fell in love with that. And I thought, if I bought a duplex, I'll give you an example. I bought a duplex and I lived in half of it just because I figured, hey, it'd be cheaper to live in half this duplex. So I lived in half of it, rented the other half out. And I remember the tenant paying me $650 for rent, and my whole mortgage payment and everything and taxes, insurance, all that was like $625. And I was like, holy crap, I'm living for free. Like that was amazing. And it's that feeling of this is what passive income is like. And of course there's a little bit of work involved. It's not totally passive, even though we say passive income, but just life-changing stuff right there. So I started buying property without using a lot of my own money because I never had any money. I never used the flip money as much as, so I did almost everything just figuring out ways to finance it and put deals together.
Yeah. I think that's a major concern for a lot of investors starting out is like, okay, I want to get going in this, but I necessarily don't have the models or the resources, how am I going to finance these deals? What does the team look like? What was your biggest challenge starting out, and how did you overcome that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest challenge always was my lack of money. I mean, I was seriously working I think I was making $8 an hour when I bought that first property, my first house. The most I've ever made, other than the last couple of years, the most I ever made at a job was, I like $12 an hour I was making at a bank. I mean, I never had any money. And so trying to be able to do that, it was like, how do I do that? Now I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, which I think everybody's read at this point. I feel like, like on the podcast, when we ask the question on our show, what books, what's your favorite real estate book? Everyone says Rich Dad Poor Dad because it was a hugely influential book. So for me, I read that book, and the thing that stood out to me was this line he said in there, Robert Kiyosaki says, which was, what was it? Rich people, I'm going to butcher the quote now, but basically, poor people say I can't afford it. Rich people ask, how can I afford it? Mm-hmm. And I remember that just changed my entire mindset. Like that one thing changed how I approach everything in life. I mean, I try in general now never to say that I can't do anything. If I can't do this, no, it's how can I do that? And so it became, well, I can't. I'm 21 years old and I'm trying to flip houses and I have no money. You can't do that. Well, no, how can you do that? Right. So that's how I overcame it was just asking repeatedly over and over and over, how do I do this? And asking other people, how do I do this? And when people say, no, it can't be done, you stop talking to them and talk to somebody else.
Right. Yeah, man.
Figure it out.
The power of reframing that question is unreal. And it allows you to kind of shift paradigm, see things through a different set of lenses, and then you start seeing what's actually possible, which is exciting. You actually just covered, favorite real estate investing books. That's how I started educating myself in the beginning of where do you start? Well, let's start with books or blogs. That's the easiest and usually the cheapest way. What were some of your favorites?
Yeah. I mean, I read a ton that first year. I remember I ordered and read over 100 books from the library on real estate. And I was just burning through them. A couple of my favorites, one of them was called Investing in Duplexes, Triplexes, and Quads by Larry Loftus. Mm-hmm. I really like that one. That got me into small multis. So, I mean, obviously the Rich Dad Poor Dad series. So there was the Rich Dad Advisor, I think it was called the ABCs of Real Estate Investing. Yep, Ken McElroy, then the Advanced Guide to Real Estate Investing, Ken McElroy. One book that really, really changed my life a lot, probably more than any other real estate book, it was called The Unofficial Guide to Real Estate Investing by a guy named Spencer Strauss. It was like the Unofficial Guide series is kind of like the Idiot's Guide. Like they give out 1 billion books about 1 billion topics. Yeah. So you wouldn't necessarily think this would be like a life-changing book because it's just part of a franchise basically. But man, that book it changed everything. What that did for me is it showed me the power of recycling cash flow. And what I mean by that is this idea of when you get money coming in from rental properties and you take that and you buy more rentals with that, and then you buy more rentals with that income, and you buy more, like you can model out like exponential growth in your business over a short, a 5, 10, 15 year span and watch your wealth grow from nothing to millions of dollars. And just that concept, it made very clear to me on that when I read that book.
Yeah, that power of the compounding effect.
Yes, exactly.
How you can utilize that to ultimately grow it over time. What do you say to a lot of the people who have this mindset of, okay, now that I have learned what I need to learn, and ultimately they have this idea in their head that they're going to be, a millionaire within a year or overnight. What do you say to those people that think this is a get rich quick type opportunity?
Yeah. I mean, I wish it was get rich quick. I mean, I struggled. I mean, I've made so many mistakes and struggled so much. And the funny thing is I never actually even felt like I was successful in real estate until maybe the last couple of years where things started turning around a little bit. And I mean that like I was picking up properties, but doing a lot of work. It was stressful. I was always like, just irritated with the tenants and this drama and that, because there's such a huge learning curve, how to manage properties, manage tenants, manage contractors, all that stuff. And I was never seeing a lot of money because everything was getting poured back into buying more properties. And I mean, yeah, it took me, 7, 8 years to be able to kind of quit my job and have, enough cash flow coming in to not have to work a day job anymore. And even then I didn't feel like I was I felt like I was still running around like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to manage everything. And so, it's not quick. It's not easy. It takes a long time, but if you're persistent at it, if you're persistent at that grind and you're continually learning how to improve that. I mean, I always ask the question, anytime I'm frustrated, how do I make sure that I'm never frustrated in that way again? Like if I'm frustrated with bookkeeping, how do I make that bookkeeping a system that I'm not frustrated with?
Exactly.
Yeah. Over time, then you will succeed at this, but yeah, it is not an overnight thing. It takes sometimes decades for some people to get into it.
Yeah. I always say it's, you got to get out of this microwave mindset. Yeah. And tap into the crock pot mentality, right? Like it's a years and, a lot of failures and failing forward and challenges that are thrown into that crock pot. But ultimately then you can kind of devise this master recipe and you start figuring it out based on what, your model is and what your recipe for success is. Yep. What would you say is your model now versus when you first started out?
Oh, good question. Today I would say I'm in the process of like systematizing almost everything. And so my model today, there's a quote by Hal Elrod. I think it was a Miracle Morning for Salespeople. It's one of the Miracle Morning series. And in that book, it said, and I'm going to butcher this quote, but it basically said, when you focus on the process and commit to it for an extended period of time, the results take care of themselves. Yeah. And I love that. Now they were talking about sales, but it applies to everything. I mean, imagine getting a 6-pack, right? I want 6-pack abs, right? Like you can hang up a picture. I said this last night to some friends of mine, but you can hang up a picture of David Hasselhoff on your wall with this, blazing 6-pack. That's not going to give you a 6-pack, right? Like you can put it on your vision board that you got a 6-pack. That's not going to get you the 6-pack. What's going to give you the 6-pack is a daily process that you're committed to day in and day out. And over time, if you commit to that process, whether that's, calorie counting, sit-ups, whatever, then the results will just happen. And so that's kind of the model I work today is how can I do processes that I can just do every day, almost mindlessly. And that like physically, examples of that would be, finding deals. How do I set up systems and processes for getting leads coming in? Whether that's calling up my real estate agent and saying, hey, can you set me up with automatic email alerts for every multifamily within a 50-mile radius? I want them in my inbox every day. My agent did that. Now I've got leads coming in every single day. Every day I get an email with the new multifamilies on the market. And then I analyze them. That's a process. Every day I analyze those deals. And so I worry less about the big picture of I'm going to make millions and I want to be a billionaire or whatever. I worry about what is the process and how can I keep working it every single day.
I love that, because so many people get caught up in this big picture instead of just focusing on these bite-sized actions that they should be taking every day. And then ultimately the big picture turns into overwhelm, which equals not taking action.
Yep. People just sit down on their couch and watch TV again because it's too hard to concentrate on the big picture all the time.
Right.
But
what has been some of the tools or resources that you have found to be invaluable in your business that you would recommend to anybody really at any stage of their investing career?
Good question. So in my business, first of all, I'll tell you a couple of specific things. So for a long time, we ran our business off of like Excel, and that was about it. Google
you don't
Docs.
need anything crazy, right?
Yeah, you don't need anything. It worked great for years. Now at the point where we're transitioning over to Buildium right now to manage our rentals and our flips. We manage a lot of that stuff through a program called Trello. It's a free,
amazing.
It's amazing. I love Trello. What I really like about Trello too is that it's got a great mobile app. So like everybody on my team is all on Trello, and when I put a ticket in there for a repair to get done or a bid that needs to get done on a project, my assistant gets it. My in-house contractor guy gets it now. They can respond. They can take pictures. They can upload it. That's been really, really helpful. So for the longest time, I had a spreadsheet that I used to analyze deals. I built it over a number of years, and the spreadsheet worked great for a number of years. Then we turned that into, on BiggerPockets, we have analysis tools. I use those now because now they're just like my spreadsheet, but fancier and prettier. And so I use those every single day to analyze deals. I don't know what else we got. That's probably, that's a bulk of it.
Yeah. That's why I like asking the question, and it's kind of a subliminal answer that I'm trying to portray out there is like people overcomplicate things.
Yes, very much so.
It's like you don't need some insane database, program, and you don't need this all-inclusive everything under the sun to go out and be successful. The technology, the tools, the resources aren't what's going to make you technology. They'll make it easier, but ultimately I know 7-figure real estate investors that run their business off of Excel.
Yep.
Or Word. I even know a few people that are still doing it like written files. And I'm like, you're crazy. But, ultimately you don't need all of these insane tools that everybody thinks is going to equal success for them.
Yeah. I call newbies out of that, on that crap a lot where like, this is not just real estate either. It's anything, right? But like people are excited about a new business venture or whatever, and they got to work on their business card. It's got to be amazing. They got to build this great website. I'm like, go get a freaking deal. Just go find a property for sale, and then you can, we'll figure out the business card later.
Yeah.
They spend their time because it feels good. It feels like you're making progress when you're designing the logo.
Yeah. You can't mistake movement for achievement, right?
Yeah. I love that.
That never works out well for anybody. So it's getting intentional about focusing on the real activities that equal success in real estate investing. As a flipper, what would you say, one or two of those activities starting out should be the top priority for anybody trying to go out and start their business?
Yeah. I think a huge one is, finding leads. Finding good leads is just solid. If you have a good lead, if you have good deals coming to you, you can get the financing figured out. You can afford better contractors because, the ones that aren't going to be, stiffing you in the middle of the night and taking all your stuff, hopefully, like a lot of things begins with that deal. So like I would get specific actions to get leads coming in continually. And again, maybe that is, I'm going to set up a direct mail campaign where every month I'm going to send out a direct mailer to absentee landlords in my area. And I'm going to do it every month. I'm going to send out 500 letters. Now that's an action that on the first of every month, that is what you do. You book out on your calendar, physical day. This is what I'm doing this day, and I will not go to sleep till it's done. Now it takes it from this intangible, I need to go find leads, to here's how I'm doing it. Or like I said, the agent thing, set automatic alerts up.
Yeah. Have those two, direct mail and kind of agent relationships or wholesaler broker relationships, been your two biggest sources of leads?
Yeah, I would say, the MLS has been the largest by far over my career, though over the last the last year, let me think, like the last 5 deals I've got. Like one of them was the MLS, was a duplex. One I got from my assistant's mom does Zumba with a lady who owns the house.
Love it.
And they tried to sell it. Here's just the random story and I'll jump back into the thing, but this house, they had it listed with a real estate agent for $160,000. Now, my area's a little bit cheaper, but that was one of the higher priced homes around in my little town. So they wanted 160 for it. It didn't sell forever. It was on the market for 6 months, maybe even a year. It didn't sell. It came off the market. And that's when my assistant and her mom started talking to this lady at Zumba or whatever, and they talked about it. Anyway, I ran the numbers on it as a flip. And I figured the ARV, the after repair value, was probably about 160. That's what they were asking, but it needed a lot of work. Mm-hmm. So, we ran the numbers. We figured out it was worth like 75, 80. It was so far off. And so I for a few weeks, my assistant kept bugging me. She's like, you need to go see this property. I'm like, there's no way they're taking that low. They're asking 160. We're miles apart. She's like, just trust me. Let's just go look at it and let's work towards it. Anyway, we got under contract for 77. And so like, you never know what people's motivations are. And we ended up wholesaling that deal out to another friend of mine. I made $6,000 on it. And it was just like, hey, that was great. I could have flipped it, maybe made 15, 20, 25, but I made $6,000. It was great. So anyway, that was just a side note, which you never know what people are going to say. So get out there and offer.
It's true. Yeah.
And we fixed their problem. Their main problem, once we started talking with them, was, and I'm going all over the place here, but their main problem was speed. The husband had an illness. The wife didn't want to deal with it anymore. They'd been holding this property, paying double payments forever, and they just wanted out now. Yeah. And so the word that triggered them to sell it to us was when we said, well, we can close in a week. It was like, okay, no problem. That fixed their pain problem. All right. So anyway, so there's that. Besides that, I got the one before that I think I got on my website. I just have a very simple, I buy houses website. I made it on Wix.com. It took me an hour.
Perfect.
It's perfect. Yeah. It's not the world's best, but it totally works. And what else did I get? Another one came from a direct mail marketing campaign that we did. So it's kind of all over the place right now.
All the traditional lead sources, though, right?
Yeah. Nothing crazy, nothing wild. Just
proof that they all work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You just put it out there and just pick something and go with it. And it's going to work out. What I don't like is people who are like, I'm going to go send 100 direct mail letters this month. And then maybe next month, you know what? I'm going to go drive a little bit and do some driving for dollars. And then, next month I'm going to go do this little thing. And then next month, pick something, get good at it, get a system, get a process that's repeatable. And thank you. My wife just brought me a smoothie.
Oh, what a good wife.
You're awesome. Anyway, so just pick something, get it working, get the system going. Like I said, every month, get your direct mail letter sent out. And then once you got that mastered and it's working and you got it kind of systematized, then pick up another lead source, start working the next one.
Yeah, that's the mistake I see too many people starting out making. Ultimately, just a lot of investors is, they try and go an inch deep and a mile wide instead of going a mile deep and an inch wide. And I always think of this, this overflowing cup, right? Until that cup is overflowing and you need to put another cup underneath it or next to it, then, there's no need for you to go out and set up 10 cups and have all of them, an eighth full.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. Auctions, I got one of my other deals came from a county auction, which came up, but I don't do auctions. And we interviewed a guy on our podcast a couple of weeks ago who gets for a while, he got all his leads from auctions. And the more he's talking about it, the more I realized this was complex stuff. I had no idea what he was talking about.
Yeah.
But I don't care because that's not my system. Now, if I wanted to make that my system, then I could learn all of that stuff and I could be the auction guy, but I'm not. And that's okay.
Yeah. That's a great point. I was meeting with a buddy of mine, mentor of mine, who was part of Blackstone Invitation Homes. And he was really one of the leaders of the largest equity play in U.S. history. And one of their things was mastering auctions. And I realized that, one, I've never bought a property at auction. Yep. I have no clue how auction works. And yet his flipping business today versus my flipping business today, mine's more profitable. And it's not some crazy complex, 5-person team just to find out if we can buy houses and actually meet our criteria. So ultimately, though, the point I'm trying to make is the fact that just pick your model, right? Yeah. Figure out what you want to get really good at, and then just focus on going deep in that instead of spreading yourself too wide.
Yep. So true. So true.
What have been some of the greatest ahas you've had in the last year from the podcast and all of the amazing investors you guys have interviewed?
Sure. I'll tell you one in particular. We interviewed a guy named David Gudmundsson, and we talked about the market. He talked about timing the market. And a lot of people have the question of, are we in a peak market? Is it too late to invest in real estate? And I would generally say, whether we are in a peak market or not, it doesn't really matter. Good deals are good deals. Find good deals.
Yep.
But he had this great analogy that he put out there, and he said, imagine that the entire real estate game or world or whatever is a game of musical chairs. And you're running around the chairs and the lights go off and the music disco ball is going, and everyone's having a great party time. And what most people do when they're trying to time the market is they're trying to wait until the music stops and you got to grab your chair and you fight for the last chair, right? He's like, what I do, when I see that everyone's having a good time, the lights go off, the disco ball is dancing, I just grab an empty chair and I put my feet up and I watch the dancing. And I thought that was just kind of a cool analogy of
love that.
Yeah, you don't need to be the last one in the game. If you feel like it's getting hot, then don't overspend on deals. Pull back a little, get conservative. It's okay. It'll come around again. There's always more money to be made later. And so again, I'm not trying to encourage people not to invest, but don't overexert yourself because you think you have to be the last one in.
Yeah, I think it's important. And that goes back to understanding how to underwrite deals properly and know what a good deal is. Because, I've talked to hundreds of investors that have been through multiple market cycles. And essentially all of them have said that I have continuously invested in a peak market and in a down market, but my underwriting became that much more important in particular shifts in the market. So, you can still make money in an up market. You can still make money in a down market. Like what you said, deals are deals, but it just becomes more important that you understand your market. You're an expert in the trends. What's, going on and ultimately where you think it's moving, so you can make sure that you adjust your evaluation process accordingly to, insulate your investments and your deals.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I feel like back in 2008 or 9 or 10, you could just buy anything and you're probably going to make money on it. It all worked.
You were riding a good roller coaster up.
Yeah, so today you just got to be smarter. I mean, you got to be smarter than everyone else, or at least smarter than we were back in 2009, 2008, 10. Yeah.
What's your team look like? I'm always curious, people who have great six-figure investing businesses, a lot of people think that it's got to be some massive team. What does your team look like?
Yeah, it's not that big at all. I mean, so when I first started, it was my wife and I only for many, many years. Back, I think 3 years ago, we brought on her mother actually only to work part-time to answer phone calls because I got tired of answering phone calls. Yeah. We just picked one part of my business that I did not like doing anymore and she didn't like doing, and it was answering phone calls. So we said, hey, and signing leases. We said, I don't really want to talk to tenants. I just don't like that. So will you sign leases and do that for $500 a month? Okay, sure. Because she had time and that was the very first person I ever brought on, and that it was up until last year. I brought on and I experimented with resident managers a little bit, and in flipping I experimented a little bit with partners, which I still use today, but I'll get to that in a second. So anyway, but my first official employee, that actually an employee came 9 months ago, 10 months ago, and it was just my assistant. I just needed somebody to help me and do everything she does everything from she's weeded my garden to she's helped me clean my kitchen when my baby's sick and my wife's busy and and I'm going crazy with real estate stuff. And she also closes deals. She brings the leads to me. So she just does whatever we need. And then I have a contractor now because I could not find a good enough dependable maintenance guy. He's contractor and project manager on the flips.
Nice.
And then a partner. I tend to flip houses now with partners because I don't have time to deal with it myself.
Yep.
And so what I do is I find the deals. I usually bring the money, either finding the money because I've got enough connections and private money, or I'll just fund the deal myself. I've done that a couple times. And they manage everything. I don't want to even step foot in the house if I don't have to. I usually do because I like being there. But I don't want to deal with the contractors. I don't want to deal with the money, the bookkeeping. They deal with that. I deal with finding the lead. And we split everything 50-50. And it keeps me out of it. But I still make more today in flipping than I ever did in the past, even though I'm splitting 50-50.
Yeah, and you got all kinds of leverage. You still have your time. You still have the freedom. You still have obviously the financial output that allows you to fund your life and do the things that you love doing. Yep. It's funny how pretty much every six-figure investor that I know runs a super lean ship. Yeah. And there's not, it's not anything that needs to be super extravagant and over the top in order to go out and have that six-figure income. You talked a little bit about how you put your deals together. And I know that's a big question for a lot of people is, okay, I have poor credit, or I don't have any money in the bank. How am I going to finance or put my deals together? What's your advice for them?
Yeah. So I said it a little bit earlier in that part of it, in that the better deal you get, the better the financing going to be. So I like to do this analogy with people. I say, imagine I offered you my house. My house right here is worth probably $280,000, maybe $300,000 that I live in right now. If I offered you my house free and clear, I just said, hey, I'll give it to you for $5,000. Tomorrow you could sell it for $300,000 and you'd make a ton of money. $5,000. But let's just say you don't have $5,000. You just did not have it. What would you do? Would you turn me down? Of course not. You'd go figure out a way to make $5,000 because tomorrow you could sell it and make $300,000. So obviously that's an extreme example, but the point that I'm emphasizing, right, is the better deal you have, the easier you have time you figure it out. So maybe you'd call up your family and ask for money. Maybe you'd go and put it on a credit card. Maybe you'd whatever to get that $5,000, knowing you can 500x your income tomorrow. So the same thing applies with any good deal. Find a good deal and you can figure out a way to finance it most likely. So my favorite ways to finance deals typically are what I call, I kind of labeled that the BRRRR strategy, and I didn't invent it. I'm just a marketing guy, so I put names to things so people think they're mine.
I like it.
Yeah, the BRRRR strategy stands for you buy a property, you rehab it, so BR, then you rent it out to somebody, and then you refinance it, and then you repeat the process. So BRRRR, buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, so
that's
you
like some ninja guru marketing tactic.
No, isn't it? and then everyone thinks Brandon invented the whole fixture up a rental property. Yeah, I did. I invented that whole process.
Yeah, right.
Thousands of years, I'm sure. But basically the idea, I'll give you a real life example. I bought a duplex. The lead came from the MLS a couple weeks ago. We closed on the duplex. I think we actually offered them full price. We offered the day it came out because it came in at $95,000 for a duplex, which was in my area. It was a great deal. I jumped on it, got under contract, used a private money lender. So somebody I met actually on BiggerPockets, just a person who had been friends. We've been friends for a couple of years now on the site. I knew that they wanted to get into private lending. So I asked if I could borrow $95,000, the whole purchase price for the property. They said, yeah, no problem. How about, what percentage? I said, how about 10? I said, okay. So for 10% interest, I'm giving them for a year or two. I think we have 18 months total on the loan. Mm-hmm. I'm going to get it rented out. Probably rent it out for, I think we're probably going to get 500 out of one unit, 800, 900 out of the other one. Rent it out, and it'll probably about break even for that first year. But then after that first year, I'm going to go to the bank. The thing's worth 160, 170, 180 once it's fixed up. It doesn't need that much work either. It needs maybe 10 grand to work.
Yeah.
And so we'll go get a new loan from the bank. They'll give us a loan price for 120, 130, get all my money back, pay the private lender off, pay everything off. And I now have this house with pretty much, I did it without much of my own money. The repair money I'll probably cover, but I could have even borrowed that.
Yeah.
And that applies for flipping as well, right? Flippers can borrow private money or hard money. I could have done it that way. Partnerships, like I said, that's another way to go. When I had no money, I used a lot of partnerships.
Same. Yeah. If you have a good enough deal, there's plenty of ways to, split the pie up. And ultimately that gives you the ability to, if you partner with the right person, right? Mm-hmm. You can learn from that person. You can learn their systems, their models, how they would move through the process. You can also build rapport with potential private money lenders and, get that relationship going. There's so many different ways that you can put a deal together. And when I hear that is, one of the number one objections for most people. Yeah. It's fun to debunk it because it's when it clicks that if I have a good deal, then ultimately I should have no problem finding a way to fund it because I have all of these tools on my tool belt to make this happen. Then that's when real estate investing gets fun for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head there where you said the tools of my tool belt. I love using this analogy of imagine you got a toolbox or tool belt and you have one tool in there. You got a hammer. You can't do anything, right? You can hit a wall and that's about it. But you got a hammer, a drill, a saw, and a nail. Now you can build a swing set. But you add in all these different tools, a jackhammer, whatever else. And the more tools you have, the bigger projects you can take on. So just learn about a bunch of different ways that you can put a deal together. So when the deal presents itself, you figure it out.
Yeah. So as we start to wrap up, I'm curious, how has house flipping and just real estate investing in general empowered you to create more wealth and freedom in your life?
How's it empowered me? Well, The real estate in general, like as a whole, is flexible, right? So time wise, I have generally the time to do what I want. So I can hang out on a call here on Zoom with you during the day because I don't have a boss saying, hey, you can't do that, right? Do it on your lunch break. It's like not the same thing. So the freedom of time is huge. The ability to, like I said earlier, to recycle cash flow. I actually don't take hardly any money from my real estate business at all. Almost everything I pour back into it. Now I could probably take an income, but that would restrict my ability to buy more. And so what the real estate has allowed me to do is to build wealth because I just keep buying more and more stuff with the cash flow that I'm getting and the profits from the flip. I just buy more stuff with it, buy more stuff with it, buy more stuff, buy bigger and better as well. And so what it's doing is it made me a millionaire, right? So like it took less than a decade for me to become a millionaire through real estate. Now, granted, the market could crash tomorrow. The tsunami could wipe out my entire town, and like I'd have to start over. But I have the knowledge now. And that's the other thing I think it adds to me is once you have the knowledge, you can do it again and again and again. Nobody can take that from you. A tsunami could wipe me out. An earthquake could take out the West Coast. As long as I'm alive, I can build this again. I can do this again. So I've got the skills now, the mindset and the skills to be able to achieve no matter what the world throws at me.
Couldn't have said it any better. You have that knowledge to now fish for a lifetime, and that's priceless in itself. So final question for you. If you had to narrow it down to one piece of advice that you feel is the most important thing to keep in mind or just focus on in order to become a consistent six-figure flipper and investor, what would you say that is?
I'm going to go real basic here, and that is I'll talk about commitment for a second. So, there's a difference between people who want things. Michael Jordan even has a quote. I even have the quote. I'm such a fan of it. I have a sign that I bought at the store because it's my favorite quote. It says, some people want it to happen, some wish it would happen, and others make it happen. And so, like, to go use the analogy I used earlier, there's a lot of people out there who want a six-pack, right? But there's very few people who are going to get it, right? There's people who want something, and there's people who are committed to something. So my question when I talk to anybody about real estate is, do you want this? Do you wish for it? Or are you actually committed to getting it? And if you are committed to getting it, that means you have those daily processes set up. If not, just like if I'm committed to a six-pack, I better have a process for getting that six-pack. Because if not, I've just proven I'm not actually committed to it. I want it. So the advice I give to people is, make sure you're committed. And the fact that you're, in this course right now, the fact that you're listening to this tells me that there's probably a good chance that you are. But if you don't have that process set up, if you don't have the time blocked out in your calendar to work on this kind of stuff, just like you would if you're committed to anything else, are you really committed to it? And so ensure that you're committed to it. And at that point, everything else becomes a lot easier.
Brilliant, brother. That is awesome. Well, we appreciate your time today. I know you got a busy schedule, but you also have the freedom and flexibility because of the life that you have intentionally designed through your real estate investing and moving forward with your wealth building journey. So thanks again, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed that interview with Brandon Turner. Dude's a complete badass. Always love connecting with him, not because of just the conversation that we get to have, but also because of what I learn and the growth that comes from it. And I'm always getting new ideas, and he's, turning me on to something new. And it's just exciting to talk to people that are doing big things because you grow into those conversations, and that's what you're going to get on this podcast. So if you enjoyed that interview, you're watching this maybe on YouTube, feel free to hit that subscribe button, whether you want millionaire interviews, whether you want real estate investing interviews. We got all of it on this channel, and you can leave a comment. Let me know what you liked, what your takeaway was, what you're going to be implementing. Maybe you got a question for myself, for Brandon. Be sure to leave those in the channel. If you are on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, wherever you're listening to this at, be sure to subscribe so you get notified of the new interviews coming out each and every week. And just connect with me. Follow me on Instagram, official Matty A. Also the same handle on Facebook, same handle on Twitter, all across. I love connecting with people who have, active questions in the real estate investing space, newbie, novice, seasoned vet, whatever you are. I love continuing the conversation. So find me there. Also, for any of the links mentioned in the podcast, any books, resources that we talked about, those will be in the show notes. You can check that out at mattaitchison.com. Or if you want more tangible tools, more accountability, a community, a framework, a system, checklists, models, basically anything from A to Z that has to do with, really most importantly, the head of the snake, right? Which is how to find real estate investment deals. Then once you find them, how to fund them, how to fix them up, and then how to flip them for big profits. Or maybe you just want to hold on to them and turn them to cash flow properties. Maybe you want to wholesale them. Be sure to check out more information at sixfigureflipper.com. That's the number 6figureflipper.com. Or you can text the word six-figure flipper, all one word, to 44222 and get more information there. As always, guys, super appreciative of you checking out the podcast today and the way we continue to grow to give out this information for free. I'm not asking for anything except for a review. If you got some value from this, please leave a review in iTunes. It's the way that we continue to reach organically all kinds of investors and all kinds of people that are really craving this kind of information. And I can promise you this, I have some badass guests, guys and gals, coming up. Be sure to tune in each and every week for a new six-figure flipper interview. I'll see you guys on the flip side.